plays hard. He's 22 years old. Like, that's ridiculous. He's young enough to have been drafted in this year's draft, right? Like, there are people that were drafted this year that are the same age as Anthony Edwards.
Ridiculous.
And he really is standing far and away as, like, the next big thing, I think, in this league. Time will tell. We'll see if he actually gets there, but I think he has all the tools to do so. But with that being said, he is gaining the experience from Team USA, right? He's playing against some of the top players, other franchise guys on other teams, day in and day out, game in and game out. And we have seen the impact that playing for Team USA has when they go back to their respective rosters and play in the NBA. And so there is a real possibility that Anthony Edwards takes another step this year into just like, hey, I am him, I am that guy, watch what I can do. And it's crazy because this guy is already that guy, right? He's 25, 5, and 4. Like, he is all-star level, ridiculous type thing. But does Minnesota as a whole have enough to really make some noise, right? Now, I am still not a fan of the Rudy Gobert trade, right? I still think that was a terrible decision. I thought that the Minnesota Timberwolves were on the right path. I thought they were young, they were hungry, they were up and coming.
It's not going to
They
die.
looked like they were set to go. And for whatever reason, Minnesota thought it was a great idea to push the chips to the table and get Rudy. Now, I understand the thinking behind it of like, okay, well, two of the big things that we lacked the previous year was rebounding and interior defense. And Rudy provides both of those things. But it just hasn't been able to work the way that they had hoped with Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is best at the 5. And Rudy Gobert clogs up the lane, which makes it harder for Anthony Edwards to be able to just get to the hoop at will. Right? Like, that's one of the things that he is just so good at. He's so quick, explosive, athletic, strong, and fast that he's able to just basically get by the defender and get to the rim at will. And the beauty was Karl Anthony Towns and his ability to stretch the floor allowed him to be out on the perimeter. And then Anthony Edwards basically had a driving lane straight to the basket. And it was like, good luck trying to stop that guy. So we saw him have to kind of adjust and make adjustments. And at times it was just clunky and awkward. And now, could it work? Of course. They'll have another off. They had a full season last year. Now they'll have a training camp, the entire preseason, and going into the regular season. And maybe they can kind of figure it out better, right? Maybe it'll make more sense. I think it's either that or the other option is you just trade Karl Anthony Towns, right? Like, look, I like Karl Anthony Towns. I think he's a great player. But that guy he makes some of the just silliest plays and decisions I think I've ever seen, right? It's just like, man, this guy just makes blunder after blunder after blunder sometimes. It's just the IQ becomes a problem, right? And I just think you're not going to be able to unload Rudy Gobert. You already insanely overpaid for him. But hey, what happened. I just think that Karl Anthony Towns gives you the best out in order to make a more fluid, deeper roster. Right? Like, I think that is something that they can absolutely use as like the way to kind of retool this thing. I'm not saying that they will. I'm not saying that they should necessarily yet. I think that they should at least give it a shot, right? See what Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert can do between now and trade deadline. But if it's still awkward and you're still fighting for a play-in spot, or trying to stay out of a play-in spot, and it's just continuing to not work well, I really think you got it. Your best bet is to just trade Karl Anthony Towns. If you can trade Rudy Gobert, I think you trade Rudy Gobert. But I don't see that happening. I love the pickup and acquisition of Mike Conley. Mike Conley gives you that savvy vet, that hard-nosed defensive guy. Obviously, he's not what he once was. If he was the grit and grind Mike Conley, Memphis Grizzlies grit and grind Mike Conley, this team might be terrifying. But he's still very good. He's still an excellent three-point shooter. He's great at playing off the ball if need be. He can facilitate, make plays. I think that backcourt of Mike Conley and Anthony Edwards is like perfect for Anthony Edwards and this Minnesota team, right? And then you have, McDaniels, who is steadily becoming one of, if not the best perimeter defenders in the entire league. So Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards gives you two legit point of attack defensive guys, gives you two legit just guard the best player on the other team every night type players. You have Rudy Gobert, who is a great shot blocking big man and can protect the paint. Like, you should be a very good defensive team. You got a very versatile wing in Kyle Anderson, right? They were able to keep Nas Reed. I think that was a solid pickup. They Nickeil Alexander, right? He's another guy that I think can continue to grow and develop, and he was actually very good for them and very solid for them. And he's only he's like 24, 25. So he's another guy. Like, I like Minnesota's roster. I think that they have a solid foundation. I'm just not sold on the Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns pairing, and I just.
Right now, there's a better way to travel, where you can wave goodbye to highway headaches, forget airport hassles, and relax on the way to your well-deserved getaway.
Stupid.
Plus, it's better for the planet than flying or driving. Not only will you...
I wonder if at this point what's best for Anthony, because Anthony Edwards is your guy. He's your franchise guy. He's the guy you build around, right? Like, if you had no choice, if you had to choose between Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, you're not choosing Karl Anthony Towns. You're doing whatever you can to keep Anthony Edwards. But if this starts going sideways again like last year, and you're the 6-7 seed, which very likely could happen, right? It's like, at what point do you just say, okay, we need to change it up here? We need to fix something here. And you're not going to get a bunch of stuff for Kyle Anderson or a Mike Conley or Rudy Gobert or Nas Reed. Like, you could probably get a bunch or a solid amount for Jaden McDaniels, but he's not getting paid anything, right? Like, so you're not going to be able to feel that into like a real legit, like, here's a bunch of things. I think you have Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. Those are your two building blocks. Those are the two guys that you're building this roster around, because I think Jaden McDaniels can legit become one of the top two-way players in this league as far as like being on ball and knocking down the three ball, like legit 3-and-D guy, right? I don't necessarily mean like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard level, but I think he could be he can guard the best player on the other team and he can knock down the three ball. And that's what you need. And then Anthony Edwards is your superstar in the making, right? That is going to potentially be a top 5 to 10 guy in the league at some point, I think. Right? We'll see. I think everyone else is expendable. And I think at some point you look at it and you go, okay, who do we have that we can now rebuild and retool this and have this look different? And actually now have more complementary pieces. All right, well, let's unload Karl Anthony Towns. And Karl Anthony Towns, I think, could get you a more reasonable power forward for the future. I think Karl Anthony Towns could give you a more, more depth that makes more sense, right? Like, can you go and turn Karl Anthony Towns into those kind of things, right? To where you can get some real depth, some real size, maybe some more youth. You got Anthony Edwards, McDaniels, Rudy Gobert. Go get yourself a 3-and-D power forward, or you can even have Daniels play the power forward because he's like 6'9" or whatever, and that's basically the size of power forwards in today's NBA. And then go get yourself a perimeter guy. Like, can you turn Karl Anthony Towns into like OG Anunoby in some pieces? Right? Then, I mean, at that point, you'd be one of, if not the best defensive teams in the league. You'd have great shooting. You'd have a guy in Anthony Edwards who can just do everything. Rudy Gobert is guarding everything. Good luck trying to score out on the perimeter with OG, Anthony Edwards, Mike Conley, and Jaden McDaniels. I don't know. I almost like that better. Right? I'm not saying you trade Karl Anthony Towns just for OG. Right? You got to get more than that. But do you do something like that? Right? Or maybe like a Pascal Siakam. Right? Do you trade Karl Anthony Towns for like a Pascal Siakam and something else? Right? Because Anthony Edwards, again, him and Jaden McDaniels, 22 years old. That's your future. That's your core. That's your foundation. Anthony Edwards is has the top 5 player in the league potential, maybe even like MVP level at some point. Again, he's 22 years old and he's already averaging 25, 5, and 5. And he's already one of the best defensive guards in the league. So to think that he can't eventually be like a 35 and 5 guy or a 32 and 8 guy or something crazy like that, I think is silly. Again, he's a 25, 5 and 5 guy last year. So I absolutely think he could go and get you another 5+ points a game once he starts learning how to like really read the game and understand the game and let the game come to him more. Because he's still playing 100 miles a minute. He's still playing like that 22-year-old kid that's just taking the league by storm, right? He hasn't learned, like, okay, pick and choose my spots and be more efficient. Let me, conserve energy here, go here. Like, learn the things that you learn as you start getting into your prime, right? I don't always need to go 100%, right? I don't always need to just go downhill and use my size and athleticism. Like, I can create a shot. I can get others involved. I can do this. I can do that, right? Like, he has, the sky's the limit for Anthony Edwards. Literally. Like, the dude is bar none. And he is getting all this experience and just thriving for Team USA. I think he just continues to grow and continues to develop. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think of Anthony Edwards? What do you think? Do you think he takes some strides this year and maybe becomes like a 27-point a game guy? Do you think that they need to trade Karl Anthony Towns? Again, I don't think they have to do it right now. I wouldn't do it today. But come trade deadline, if you're fighting for a 7th seed or something, it's time to go. Right? It's time to move on. Because again,
I watch Kyrie Irving, even though I already know. Actually, no, I watch Kobe. Kobe is better. Kobe.
Progress toward global net zero will take big thinking put into action. We're developing and deploying carbon capture and storage to lower our carbon intensity, while helping create storage hubs so industries like cement can too. That's energy in progress.
Bro, don't nobody care.
Hi, I'm Sean Gregory from Time.com, and we are here at Southern Nazarene University outside Oklahoma City with Kobe Bryant, who's in town with the Lakers. They're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow, and we're going to get a free basketball lesson with Kobe Bryant. Kobe, thanks a lot for doing this.
My pleasure.
So let's start with basic shooting form.
Well, first of all, let's start with the grip. I like to have my fingers normally in the seams. So get your thumb right here in the seams. This way you have a good grip on the ball. Keep the ball in your fingertips. You want to be able to have that space. You don't want to be able you don't have to shoot the ball, on your palm, obviously.
Right.
And what I do with this offhand, I normally keep my thumb in between. It's just a comfort thing for me. So the important thing is to find the grip that's comfortable to you. And then once you elevate it, my form is pretty much right here. This is what I'm comfortable with. Now, as a kid, I used to try to do this and all, but it just wasn't comfortable to me. So this is a position that's most comfortable to me. It's almost like an L, but not really.
Right, it's a little angled back a little
bit.
Right.
I mean, the difficulty that I have in shooting is a lot of times my head moves, which then throws the balance of the shot off. So, even if I'm shooting a twist and fade away or a free throw or a three-point shot, I like to keep my head straight because that's the balance.
Can you just walk us through some jab steps? Not everybody can just flow by people, so you got to use some footwork.
The thing about footwork, you don't have to be fast or quick. But what you have to do is you have to sell the fake. So for example, if defender is guarding me, I'll set it up the first time. If he's close to me, I'll just blow by and just go right. You just use your footwork. You try to get it to the outside of his foot. Just go right by him.
Right, so you my inside foot, you want to blow by.
You have to attack that. Right. You have to attack that foot, make him drop, then go right to the basket.
You're attacking the foot, because as a defender, if you attack my foot, I kind of like stop.
Well, it's tough. I mean, you got to be a really good defensive player to be able to drop that foot and then cut somebody off. And so the next time, he knows I've already done that. So now I can fake, and now I can go. So now you got the defender in the quandary now. He doesn't know, you can drive left, you can drive right, you can pull up and shoot. So then that's when you jab him, sell that fake, that jump shot fake. Defender raises up just a little bit. Now you can go either right or you can go left. So it's almost like chess kind of. Each move sets up the next move.
Do you ever visualize like help coming over and
all the time? Right. All the time, because that's when I work on my pull-up jump shot. Because now you beat the defender. Oh, here comes the help. You know, you gotta shoot that pull up jump shot. Oh, the double team's coming here, spin here.
The pull-up jump shot, perfect segue. It's the lost art in basketball.
Right.
Every announcer says, back in the 70s and the 80s, they all could do pull-up jumper. It's hard to do.
Now, the science of it really is just you want to be on balance once you're going up. After that, you know, you might fade, you might do whatever. But going up, you want to be able to have a firm base, pivoting here with this leg here, and getting a strong base here. Now, once you elevate, now you can fade. I think like I'll demonstrate since you're left, you're going into your strong hand, I'll do it going right. So I'm coming here as a defender, this is what you're seeing. You're seeing this right here as a defender.
I'll be like 15.
So now I'm taking it from here. I'm raising up and shooting that shot.
That's the key, is protecting the ball when you're kind of planting your foot. You
have
got to
to
protect, because then I can just
especially when you got little guys on you, because they'll get up in there and try to take it from you. You know, so you got to protect it. Raise up and just shoot right over the top of them.
Foul shooting. Kobe against the Knicks went 21 for 21, 22 for 22 when he scored 61 at the Garden, the Garden record. Just what are you thinking of? Do you take the same amount of dribbles every time? You know, Mark Jackson used to, kiss the rim or something like, do something like that. So what's your routine?
This is why I walk through my routine right now. A lot of times my hands get dry. Just because the game is tough to feel the ball. So a lot of times you'll see me either blow my hands or I'll get some sweat from my forehead, dry my hands off just slightly. Then the ref will throw me the ball. Once I catch it, I'll roll it out. Take a breath, settle in. 1, 2, 3. Square here. Keep your head steady. Follow through.
Now your follow through, your other hand is kind of straight up. I mean,
you know what? I always use the offhand as a guide, really. It's like, I use it to aim.
What are you looking at when you're guarding somebody? Talk me through what your mentality is.
I play to my opponent's weaknesses, obviously. So your left hand. So I'll probably sit inside here and get this hand inside here. You know, it's a little trick for the weekend warriors over there.
You like tricks.
Once this guy makes his move with his right hand, what you try to do is you try to pin this arm. See this arm right here? This is a strong hand. You pin this, because you know he's inevitably going to come back to a strong hand, right? So now when he makes that move, now he can't come back. Watch, try to cross over. That ball pops out. That ball pops out because you pin that, you take away his strength. Right here, you get up inside of him.
Yeah, out of control. How do you do that without getting a foul call? Huh? How do you do that without getting a foul call?
So it's too fast.
It's too fast.
It's too quick.
In the end, right.
It's too quick. You know, you're in here. You just got this guy here.
Yeah, right.
So once he goes right, now I sit in his pocket here, and now I won't let him come back. So when he comes back, he's coming right back to me, and I can steal that ball, and we're off.
How do you tune out trash talk or heckling? I mean, how do you, kind of all this stuff going around?
You get in character. Like the game we played the Knicks, I wasn't in the mood to talk to anybody. And I wasn't gonna say hello to Spike. I wasn't gonna say hello to my man Jay-Z. I just wasn't in the mood. I didn't want to hear anything. I was in my mode, my focus. I wasn't gonna let anybody break that. Basketball, a lot of times has to do with the emotional space that you can put yourself in. In that particular game, I was in one of those moods. I mean, a couple of Knicks guys would come up to me during the game and say hello, as we've done in the past, and I just ignored them because I was in my zone, and I didn't want anything, outside of that taking me out of it.
We've gone through a lot. Any other tips for?
Have fun. Stretch.
Stretch?
Stretch.
Really?
Stretch.
Because, some people, you grow up, you're young.
Stretch. You better stretch. My dad still plays basketball now. And the hardest part is not actually playing, it's getting up in the morning the next day. That's the hardest part for him. Got to stretch.
Anything else?
Have fun. See you when I see you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Excuse me. Come here. I see, that's talking trash. That's talking trash. You tell the player you can't do nothing about it. No, give me that hand, give me that hand, give me that hand. Oh.
Hook shot.
Oh.
Yo, Kobe.
So we all know that Michael Jordan was an incredible basketball player. For many people, he's the undisputed GOAT. And in the Thinking Basketball Greatest Peak series, our Patreon community voted him number 1. But one topic that always comes up with MJ is his teammate quality. In 1994, Jordan retired, and without him, the Bulls won a hefty 55 games and played the Eastern champion Knicks to a near draw, leading some people to think he might have been playing with a stacked deck. Others think those championships were all about Jordan because he finally embraced the team game in 1991 under the Zen master Phil Jackson. To help answer this question, we went back and tracked 129 Michael Jordan playoff games to compare MJ and his teammates to what we've learned over the last quarter century. As we've discussed many times, there's no easy way to measure how good an NBA player is. We use basic stats like points per game or shooting efficiencies in conjunction with more advanced ones like how much a player improved his teammate's shot quality. But there's no silver bullet. What most of us are really trying to figure out is how much a player helps his team win, how much his presence impacts the scoreboard. And that's where one particular stat is always worth knowing.
What's this one?
He is a Hall of Famer who averaged 7 points per game. During his career, he was an alcoholic, womanizer, a tireless partier, and one of the best defenders and rebounders in NBA history. He's a tattooed lunatic and a shy good guy in one. All that and much more is Dennis Rodman, one of the most complex and interesting people in NBA history. In this video, we'll discuss the curious case of Dennis Rodman, how good he was actually, and the impact he had on his teams and the NBA in general. Early life and career. Rodman's whole life is anything but ordinary, and his path to becoming an NBA player was different than any other player in history. He was relatively short in high school, standing at 5'11". He didn't make the varsity team and was completely irrelevant in the eyes of college scouts. His father left the family when Dennis was 3, and his mother worked tirelessly to provide for her 2 daughters and Dennis, who was a completely lost cause by his own admission. I wandered aimlessly on the streets of Dallas. I didn't know what I wanted. I had no interest in school, and nobody was interested in me and my game. Somewhat unbelievably, Rodman experienced a sudden growth spurt between the age of 19 and 20 and grew over 7 inches to his current height of 6'7". But other than playing basketball on the playgrounds, Rodman never played organized basketball in his life and was stuck drifting from one odd job to another. When he was working as a janitor in the Dallas International Airport, he got arrested for stealing 15 watches from the airport gift shop, after which his mother kicked him out of the house. He would probably end up dead or in jail if it weren't for Lonnie Reisman, a coach at the small University of Southeastern Oklahoma State in the NAIA division, who offered Rodman a scholarship after seeing him play in a junior college tournament. The competition in the NAIA was weaker than on the average playground in New York, so Dennis dropped buckets like he was MJ, averaging 25 per game. However, it wasn't his scoring numbers that stood out, but his ferocious rebounding. Rodman led the division in rebounding with 16 in 1985 and 18 in 1986, which caught the eye of the Detroit Pistons, who took a chance on him with the 27th pick in the 1986 NBA Draft. Bad boys for life. Rodman fit like a glove with the Pistons' blue-collar, hard-nosed roster led by Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and Bill Laimbeer. He was extremely loyal to the Pistons' head coach, Chuck Daly, and was willing to die for him on the court. Chuck was the father I didn't have. I did everything he said without questions. He was the only one who gave me a chance, and it was my duty to justify it every second on the floor. And Rodman did precisely that. Physically, he was a freak of nature, and he had so much energy that it seemed like he was powered by a nuclear power plant. There were many players who could stay out all night, drink, take a girl home, and then score 30 the next day because they were highly skilled. Wilt Chamberlain, Allen Iverson, Vince Carter, Barkley, and Jordan are examples of that, to name a few. But defense is something else. Defense takes willpower, a huge desire to stop the opponent, and energy to fight for position, and to jump higher than everybody for the rebound. And that's where Rodman was the best. He simply played harder than everybody else. He dove for loose balls, he rebounded harder than everybody, he never backed down on defense, not even an inch. And then he celebrated his good defense like a madman, and everybody hated playing against him.
New Dyson technologies make this cordless vacuum motor their most powerful yet. Dyson's advanced HEPA filtration keeps particles trapped. Now in Prussian blue and rich copper. Only at Dyson.
5 minutes, bro. I could have skipped that too.
And capable. Or get 0.9% APR. That's over 3,200 total trade assistance on 2023 Sierra.
There was so much power and adrenaline in Rodman's body that he would often ride a stationary bike for another hour or lift weights after the games. With Rodman at the helm of their defense, the Pistons improved from 15th best defense in 1986 to 5th best defense in 1987 in Rodman's rookie year. In 1988, they had the second best defensive rating in the league and never dropped out of the top 5 during Rodman's time there. The Pistons had drafted Isaiah Thomas in 1981, and he was an all-star each season from 1982 until 1993. Bill Laimbeer was also a 3-time all-star in the mid-'80s. Those two guys were the leaders of the team and its most famous players. But until Dennis Rodman came to the Pistons for the 86-87 season, Isaiah and Laimbeer had only won one playoff series. And then, in 1987, they reached the conference finals and narrowly lost to the Celtics in Game 7. Finally, in 1988, they got past the Celtics, but the Lakers were too strong this time in the finals, and the Pistons fell in another Game 7, losing the championship by 3 points. But it all came together in 1989. The Pistons swept the Celtics and the Bucks, and then they got rid of Jordan and the Bulls in 6 games. In the finals, they swept the Lakers, avenging the loss from the year before and celebrating the first title in franchise history. Next season, Pistons dominated again and posted the best record in the East for the 3rd consecutive season. They cruised to the conference finals when they met Jordan again. With the infamous Jordan rules, the Pistons literally beat the living crap out of MJ for an entire series, and they managed to defeat the Bulls in 7 games. It was also the 3rd consecutive season that the Bad Boy Pistons knocked Jordan out of the playoffs. In the 1990 finals, Pistons edged Portland Trailblazers in 5 games, with Isaiah Thomas as the finals MVP. In 1991, Jordan finally avenged all those losses, and his Bulls had swept the Pistons in the conference finals, after which the Bad Boys had famously left the building without shaking their hands. In 1992, the aging Pistons made it to the playoffs, but were eliminated in 5 games by the New York Knicks in the first round, which was the end of the Bad Boys era. Chuck Daly left the team, which was especially hard on Rodman. He didn't have a father figure anymore, and it was like somebody cut the leash off a wild animal. Tattoos started piling up, and Dennis the Menace became a regular in bars and nightclubs of downtown Detroit. Rodman even attempted to take his life in 1993, bringing a shotgun to the arena with the intent of using it on himself. Thankfully, he gave up and fell asleep in his car, where he was found by the legendary NBA reporter Craig Sager. Sager talked him out of suicide, but Rodman realized he couldn't stay in Motor City and demanded a trade. San Antonio Spurs and the best rebounder in the league. Rodman came to the NBA at the age of 25. He was never interested in offense, and he averaged double figures in scoring only once in his career. He was on the floor because of his tenacious defense, as he was arguably the peskiest defender the league had ever seen, highlighted by 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 1990 and 1991. He was also always a strong rebounder for his size, and he averaged 9 boards in 26 minutes per game during his first 5 seasons. Because he would always wiggle his way to the ball among taller players, he got nicknamed the Worm. However, what he did from 1992 to the rest of his career is almost inexplicable, and it shows what a unique basketball genius Dennis Rodman really was. He studied and practiced rebounding extensively, and went to extreme lengths to check the angle and trajectory of the ball, learned how each player shoots, and adjusted his positioning accordingly. He learned how often the ball rotates with the best NBA scorers, which is how he knew where the ball would bounce if they missed. Combined with his supreme athleticism and everlasting cardio, this new technique created a rebounding machine. Rodman led the league in rebounding for 7 seasons in a row between 1992 and 1998, averaging 16.7 boards in that span. When Rodman came to the Spurs in '93, he formed a killer defensive and rebounding duo with David Robinson. But the 2 stars never liked each other. The team never reached the success it could. Robinson was in the Army, He lived a strict athlete lifestyle, while Rodman was getting more notorious by the minute. He started dyeing his hair every night with the Spurs, started getting more tats and piercings, and of course, he was drinking and partying as much as he could. However, the Spurs won 62 games in 1995, David Robinson was the MVP, and Rodman controlled the boards. But after they got defeated by Houston in the '95 playoffs, Rodman lashed out at Coach